Hello, guys. I'm Sudarshan, a Starshine Star. How are you? How are you guys doing? I hope very well. This is going to be, I was recording earlier and I posted on my YouTube channel, which is called It's the Dazzling of the Light. Or you can just go to YouTube and type in at Sudarshan, a Starshine Star. I have a variety of clips there, 275 right now, podcasts on a variety of topics that are pretty interesting, spicy, and juicy. So why not check it out? Why not join? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. As I was doing this today, a podcast which is up now that I entitled Red October Part 2. This op is much bigger than you think. I wasn't finished with it and I was cut off. So I'm going to pick it up from there. I'm going to call this clip Red October Part 2A. This op is much bigger than you think. So I like to begin all of my clips with the three opening prayers that are in Sanskrit and Telugu, but they are short. And it is the Guru Mantra, the Ganesha Mantra, and the Gayatri Mantra. I do this to bless, uplift, purify, and protect you, me, and this clip. Before I do that, I'm going to do this. I'm commanding on the sacred blood of Jesus the Christ, Yeshua, to flow over all of us and all of our beloveds, to flow over all of our social medias and all the ways that we express and bring forth our communication for the best and the highest. Jesus the Christ, please cast out the spirit of pain. Please cast out the spirit of fear. Please cast out the spirit of ill health. Please cast out the spirit of lack and poverty. Please cast out the spirit of self-rejection and shame and blame. Please cast out the spirit of mental instability and confusion. Jesus the Christ, please cast out all satanics and all satanic attachments. Cast out all demonics and all demonic attachments. Jesus the Christ, please send your healing presence now. Thank you. Please heal all the wounds in our soul, Jesus. Thank you. Jesus the Christ, Yeshua, we receive your beautiful healing presence and all of your blessings. Thank you so much. Amen. Swaha. Mother Mary, please be here with us ever more clearly. Although we know that Mother, Father, God is always with us, we really ask for the powerful, sweet, divine, beautiful, unconditionally loving and blessing heart and embrace of Mother Mary to be here with us, blessing us, all of our beloveds, all of our human beloveds, all of our animal beloveds. Thank you so much. Thank you, Yeshua and Mother Mary. Amen. Swaha. So listeners, where I was cut off just today in the part 2 of the clip that I just mentioned, I was talking about how when President Trump went to Windsor Castle, and it was like a replay of his capitulation tour in 2017 and 2018, but instead of Queen Elizabeth capitulating and surrendering and being shown that, here was Prince Charles or King Charles. It's not really the real Charles. He's a goner, had military tribunal, and he's not around. And you can look at photos and see that very easily, very, very easily. But this was like a comedy show with President Trump walking so far ahead of supposedly King Charles in front of his own guards. You know, it's the regent on the throne that checks their guards, not supposedly just a visiting dignitary, a president of the United States, no. But President Trump was checking the guards, and he has the right to do so. And the faux King Charlie was so far behind him that often when the photographers were filming this, you couldn't even see that there was a King Charles supposedly even behind walking at all. President Trump looked like he was the only one, and that was on purpose. But as I was saying before I was cut off in the last part of this podcast, President Trump, since 2017, 2018, has been the actual exchequer of the Earth realm because of what I said, what he did, how he signed out the Virginia Company, which was the name that the evils out of City of London, Crown, still called the United States of America because it was still licensed to them and they still owned it, really. That's been like the hidden secret from us for so long. And I think a lot of you might know about the hijacking of my country, which was a constitutional republic called the United States for America in regular capitalization. And in 1871, it was hijacked and turned into a corporation by the evils, by the banksters, by the, you can call them the Illuminati, you can call them the Satanic Cabal, Children of Cain, Seed of the Serpent, the Jesuits, the evils out of the Vatican, and the 13 Satanic Papal bloodline families. You can call them Khazaria Mafia. You can see them in the World Economic Forum, at the UN, in the EU. You can see them in the Trilateral Commission, the Club of Rome, the Bilderberger Group, many splintered, the Octagon Group out of Switzerland. You can see them in they have many branches of this very foul satanic tree. And this has been allowed to rule for a very long time, thousands of years, really. Yeah, but the end of that is right now. That's what you're witnessing. That's what you're seeing happening here on the Earth realm right now. And it's biblical. It's truly a battle. It's ultimately a spiritual battle between good and evil. It is a consciousness. It is a war for the consciousness of the humans. It is a war for the soul of all beings. It's a digital war. It's a corporeal war. But as has been said, and I've quoted so many times, it is Casino Royale. It is winner take all. It's really important. It is. But anyway, so I was referencing why President Trump was referred to in this latest gathering of all the leaders of all the nations, except for the ones that President Trump said you're not going to be allowed to come in, at the United Nations headquarters in Manhattan, in New York City, New York. And on camera and recorded, President Trump was addressed as Your Excellency. Now, if you listen to the last part of this podcast that I called part 2, and this is, of course, like I said, part 2A, you'll hear what I said about the true identity of Melania Trump, and also related to Princess Diana Spencer. But I wanted to there's a tiny point that I didn't make clear, and it is an important point. When I spoke about Baron Trump, I want to be clear that yes, he is the biological son of Donald Trump and Diana Spencer, Princess Diana, as you know her, although she's actually really rightfully queen through the Spencer line of England. Melania was the surrogate for Baron. So Baron wasn't born as an illegitimate child. Melania held the, this is going to sound way too clinical, but held the fertilized egg, or the fetus of, the little baby of Donald Trump and Princess Diana, and then brought that baby to term and gave birth to that baby. So that's what happened there. Now, I want to go back. I was in, when I originally had prepared this, I was going to go into, based off of what I just said, and I've spoken about it before in my other podcasts, but I think I need to do a podcast just really dedicated to this, about the line of the Clooney Lincoln and who they are, and how they are the direct descendants of Jesus and the Marys, and the part that they play, yes, on the world stage, but more specifically in our constitutional republic of the United States for America. And I'm going to read to you guys in the next few podcasts that I do, the actual little letter that was put out by President Trump, and the title underneath it says, "The United States for America." It's blatantly and boldly showing that our republic is officially reclaimed. No, it's officially here, present. And that's also why you're seeing this year all this turmoil and ruckus as the satanic, quote, elites, end quote, although they're scumbags, and all of their minions are just feverishly trying to hold on to the last bits of their power and influence and money. But it's a losing battle. Anyway, so I'm going to go back to, I was reading from Michael Jaco's interview of Sheila Holm, Holm, and you can go back and listen to it. I really suggest that you do. But I'm picking up, because I didn't plan on making this. I was just cut off. I thought it was going to be one podcast. So here's where I left off with that. Sheila Holm is speaking, and she says, and what does he do in the military well, my dad was in World War II, and so on his funeral, they take the flag off of where it's flying. And he said, he's referencing to what happened recently with the military and President Trump, and that's what she was talking about. But you have to listen to the first part of this podcast to get it. But anyway, she said, and he said, sir, this is the one that was flying over the Capitol as of today. Okay. The Capitol is D.C., okay? We took it down and they folded it in military uniform fold and handed it to the man who's over the family. She's laughing. Do you see? Jaco, yeah, wow. Sheila, just like they do at a funeral? And it was the one over the Capitol. So all of this is significant. Jaco, there you go. Sheila, see what I mean? Jaco, yeah. Sheila, now everybody thought that all Congress was sitting in there that day and they were all arrested. I think the Capitol's been empty the majority of the time since 2021, and she's laughing as she says this. Because you think back, how many times did you see all these guys out in there supposedly talking to the speaker or talking to the front? There's nobody there. They've got no entourage. They didn't even have an extra person handing them anything. They're just standing there at the podium by themselves. I mean, excuse me? So I think it was a really big step. And when he did that, what he did was reactivated our militia from a sea to shining sea, because our militia hasn't been able to operate. In fact, that's the question that came out. You've heard about those Democrats that took off out of Texas because they didn't want to do a vote on the redistricting. Okay, so then they were going to send the Texas Rangers after them. They're at the power level of a U.S. Marshal. And right now, it's not just crimes in D.C. on the street. There are as many or more quoted to be in D.C. right now than the National Guard that's in D.C. to clean up the crimes in D.C. It's a much bigger operation than people are understanding. Boots on the ground even. And listener, I forgot to say, because I said it in the first part of this podcast, this is from over a month ago. So in case you're thinking, wait a minute, why is Sudarshana talking about this DC cleanup when it was already like over a month ago? Because all the things I've referenced that people need to know to understand what's going on now. So that's why I said that. Anyway, back to the reading. So then Jaco says, so with that happening, I was talking about 800 National Guard. And remember Trump said to Nancy Pelosi, I can bring in 15,000 National Guard? These 800 or so, under 1,000 that he has there right now, are basically just setting up for a big thing that's coming. Sheila, yes. For the upsets and unrest based on what's coming, because the breakup of our country were the acts of war in 2020. And all of these people are boots on ground here from all of the nations that were operating in our elections against us in 2020 to take over our nation. So with all of that being housed there, and then Jaco interrupts and says, also with all the Democrats going to New York and Chicago, you know, we talked about that, how there's going to be like 14, I think. There's going to be upwards of 17 cities that were probably going to get trashed. And so those Democrats running to those two cities, he's meaning New York and Chicago, those Democrats running to those two cities are an indicator that the Democrats and the evil groups are going to run to these cities and in a last-ditch effort to try and maintain. So I think that was an indicator of what's coming. Sheila. And that's where the Texas guys went on a private jet that was chartered for them. So there's a lot more people in trouble than the Democrats who tried to escape from Texas. But the Texas Rangers, did you know that Governor Abbott was involved in this? And Texas Rangers, the title was changed because they're at U.S. Marshal level. And so Texas Rangers became Texas State Guard. The National Guard is under the Army. They're not militia. Okay. And so the National Guard, Lieutenant Colonel Pete Chambers, and you've had him on, haven't you, Jaco? Not Pete Chambers, no. Sheila. Oh, I've got to get you guys connected. There's a couple of reasons I'll explain to you. So he's over the Texas Rangers now because they put him over the National Guard to take care of the border. The National Guard can't take care of the border because they're part of the military-industrial complex that's not able to control the border. So in our Constitution, it's a militia. So here we come back to what President Trump did on June 14th by, quote, regularizing, end quote, whatever the term would be, all of our military, all under the same Constitution, all under the same structure, all under the same control. It goes back to the Constitution. If you're between 18 and 55 and able-bodied, you can come in. And they come in and out because they have to work to pay for their families. So they come in and out and take care of the border. And if it's too many that are coming in, then it becomes a multi-state. Because as soon as they get into Texas, Arizona, California, they go on to other states. And so it was to stop that. It's taken care of in our Constitution. We've never been able to do that because they got rid of deregularized. Excuse me, let me read that again, listener. We've never been able to do that because they, meaning the evils, the satanic evils, the cabal and their minions, listener, because they got rid of, deregularized all of our militia. So our militia have not been active. And that's why I did an article called Remember the Alamo. We were in the same situation where they tried to do what they tried to do then. And you cannot let this happen because once they infiltrate, they're everywhere. Yes, they're everywhere. And that's where we are now. Jaco. Yep. Sheila. So when you mention about these cities, how funny is that? Texas went to Chicago. Jaco. Yeah. Sheila. I mean, all of them went on the same plane to Chicago. So, yep. Jaco. They're going to run. I think that's probably going to happen with a lot of Democrats. I don't think the Democrats as a party exist going forward. All of the corruption, all of the evil that they've done over the last, several decades is going to get exposed, and no one's going to want to vote for them anymore. They may still have a remnant going forward. So I think that's why Elon Musk, came out with his new party, because there'll be a new party, because the Democrat Party is going away. Sheila, And the parties are a problem because they're all the tops of the parties, and you can't get in these parties. You can't get in these positions unless you're in the club of the societies. You have to be controlled. And this whole structure has to be broken down. And that's why the whole DC thing had to go. That's why so many people aren't even using the word DC or the term DC since June 14th. Because it's just a town called Washington. And they took land from two of the states, I think it's Maryland and Virginia, to create it. So that they try to control that whole region. And that is pretty much what they've done. Everybody, defers to them to control everything. Jaco. Yeah. So what area of the book do you think we're moving towards more than anything else? And which ones have we probably taken over? you sent me something about the FBI, chapter 18, that has some interesting points. Then chapter 19 begins with the Un-American Activities Committee. House Un-American Activities Committee, HUAC, is an investigative committee of the United States House of Representatives created in 1938 to investigate alleged disloyalty and subversive activities. That sounds very interesting and something that is probably happening right now. What are your thoughts on that? And listener, I want to say, I mentioned the name of this book that Sheila Holm, her latest book, because you can go on Amazon, like I said, type in Sheila, HOLM, and you'll see all the books that she's written. They're all available there. And I have a couple of her books, but the latest one that they're talking about, I can never remember exactly the title. I said it in the first podcast, the first part of this podcast. So you can go listen to that. But that's what they're referring to here, her latest book, that over a month and something ago that came out. Since then, she's come out with another book, I think. Anyway, so then Sheila says, well, that's the beginning of chapter 19 that goes through. It goes backwards. So it's, I put it at the beginning because that's how it goes. That's the next point. So the FBI, I believe it's point 35. So I think it's point 34 that would be the Un-American activities. And this is what they do. We don't understand. They said that that was where the communist ties were in. They've been, the whole Democratic National Socialist Party moved us to this location, took over the 10 square miles and called it DC back in 1792. We were up in New York, which was always American City in the federal, we were up in New York, which was always America's City in the federal building. And it was just a few people, you know what I mean? It was a little 2-story building. I think it's still there. And Washington was sworn in there in 1789. And by 1792, they've already moved us to DC. But they made it into their worship center that we didn't know about until 2020. We didn't know about the formation of the owl. We didn't know about all the tunnels underneath. We didn't know about all of these things. Now, listener, I'm going to interrupt to say what Sheila's talking about when she says a worship center. And believe you me, I've spoken about this a lot on my channel, my YouTube channel. So you can go listen to my controller series. It's called The Controllers. You can listen to my Real series, or what every American needs to know series. If you look at DC from an aerial view, it's just a huge owl. It's set up as a perfect owl. And that's the same owl that you see in Bohemian Grove in Northern California. That's closed now. It's not operating. It was a huge forest where Bohemian Grove was. There was a private social club in San Francisco proper in this city called Bohemian Grove. It's the same thing. But their huge outlet was further north in this huge forest. That was called Bohemian Grove, where the satanic elite, all the presidents, vice presidents, prime ministers, celebrities, top musicians, top authors, people of name, fame, and influence would meet in the middle of the summer there for a couple of weeks, and they did the most disgusting orgies, satanic rituals, pedophile hunts, with small toddlers. Yeah, and they unalived the children during those hunts, and they also RAPED'd them, and then sometimes ate them. I've talked about that before, even though that's so distressing. I hate even saying that with my mouth, but really foul and disgusting things. And there was a huge effigy of a gigantic owl there. That's a representation of the satanics, one of the satanic gods that they call Moloch, that you read about from the Old Testament. Moloch, Moloch. Moloch is also seen in a version of that bull on top of a figure that you see out of ancient Sumer and the ancient civilizations, but unfortunately it's still continued today. It's like a big bronze statue. You think of like a bullhead on top of a looks like a human figure, seated with its arms kind of outstretched in a huge, what looks like a big bowl, or like a wok on its lap over a huge inferno, a huge oven underneath that bowl. And that's where the satanics have the elites and their minions have that's part of their worship, where they give their firstborn babies and also other babies. It's called burnt offerings. They take the live baby and they throw them into the fire. Now I just have to stop a minute, because no matter how much I have known about this and talked about it and cried over it, cried buckets and prayed over it and everything, and I can't tell you, and I can't post the analog photos and old films, black and white, that I've seen. So many things I had to see in my research that they're just unspeakable. They're unimaginable horrors. So that's what that means about the owl, about the satanic corrupted Freemasons that designed Washington, D.C., District of Columbia, foreign invasion on American soil, not a part of Maryland, not a part of the United States, part of the Satanics Corporation, and they're satanic, so they worship forms of Satan, and that's why the owl, and yeah. All right. And that's also why you've seen so much remodeling and pulling down of things since 2017, since President Trump first got into office there. And there's so many pictures of it. You know, it goes into kind of another topic, though, listener, because underneath the Capitol in D.C., there was excavation at that time in 2017, which showed a whole nother capital underneath the Capitol. And if you don't know about Tartaria, if you don't know about the mud floods, if you don't know about what's underneath our feet, besides massive networks of tunnels, some newer, recent, some very, very ancient, thousands of years old, it goes all underneath the earth realm, underneath all of us, everywhere, that were used for very, very dark, nefarious purposes. Mostly, yes, they built underground cities that went down miles. The satanic elites did, for their preparing for their hiding back under the ground after they destroyed most of what was up here, and took the Earth population from 7.8 billion down to 500 million. And we saw that was what was going on in 2020, but it was foiled. Anyway, the whole subject, which I have started researching several years ago, and if you go around, like I live in a place where, and I show lots of people whenever I can, you can see with your own eyes the old world buildings of the time of Tartaria, and they're buried underneath. You can see the first levels. We can't see them except the very tops. If you look at the basements on the street levels of things, of buildings, and you're walking by and you're thinking, why are these look like huge plate glass windows, the tops of them sticking out of a street level of the basement? Who puts large, huge plate glass windows in a basement for no reason, looking out to like dirt? Like, what does that mean? It's because they were the first original story. They were covered by the mud floods. All the things that the evils have done with their technology over the years, all the great resets. We've been up to, I think, so far 5 documented great resets that the evils have done. It might be 4. It might be one of the resets. Noah's flood was divinely orchestrated to wipe off the Nephilim and a lot of evil that was just flourishing too much on the earth realm. But the other ones were resets by the evils themselves. Once humanity starts remembering too much and getting too powerful again and remembering what they really are, they get wiped. And this has been going on for a very long time. But those are topics for another clip. I don't want to keep diverting too much into that. But you should look into Tartaria, mud floods, great resets, and you'll find out a lot. So anyway, Jaco says, the Capitol was in Annapolis, right? Sheila, I don't know. The federal building in D.C. is all I've ever found. Anyway, what happens with there, guys, what happens with their guys is that that committee went through some changes. And then they tried to say that they abolished it because people got upset by 1975. And so, but they never abolished it. They took all of those functions and put it in the House Judicial Committee. And so it just kind of gets shoved in there underneath what is. That's just like what we mentioned last time with the FBI chapter. The Bonaparte starts the National Municipality League. It takes over all the towns, villages, cities, counties, states. That's why there's no state constitutions that are being ratified in the majority of our states. It's because they didn't want you to take a loyalty oath. And so if you take a loyalty oath to a state constitution that isn't ratified, it doesn't mean anything. So the people in this state have never demanded that they've never tried to get the vote on their constitution, and it's in position to hold people accountable. So they've torn us apart by all of these layers. So in doing so, what happens is there's no difference when they change the titles on these things. None of this has changed. They're just shoving it into another area. And look at what happened to our judicial system since the 1970s. And what happened within CIA under Casey since the 1980s. You must tell them everything false until they believe. You must tell them everything false until everything they believe in America is a lie. And that's what they've done. Truth couldn't exist. That's why these layers create a psychiatric layer and then just have everyone evaluated. And now they're not just evaluating you if you're in court to see whether or not they want to accept your opinion. They'll have a psychiatrist say that you can't be trusted and your truth will never make it to the court. And listener, I want to interrupt a little bit. I thought about putting this into this podcast, but it's just too much. I don't know if you've heard of Jordan Maxwell. He's passed away now. A wonderful guy. So much good information he gave. And he's all over the place. He's not hard to find, but he wasn't the only one, of course. But he was the one that was giving great detail about like what Sheila Holm is talking about here, how the psychiatrist will see if you can't be trusted and if your truth won't make it to the court. Well, just the fact that you go into the U.S. courts and have an attorney represent you, that already shows the court off the bat that you're saying that you're mentally deficient and you have to have an attorney represent you. This is all under the old ways of the Admiralty law that we've been under in the United States. Yes, I mean as in the British Navy, as in that satanic Admiralty law, which you can see by all the gold fringe draped all over our American flags and hanging off our American flags. That's not normal for the constitutional republic. That was added after we were put back under Admiralty law, which is law of the sea, not common law of the land, which is God's law, which can be proven. Law of the sea is a pirate's law. It is very flimsy and loose, and who can claim dominion over what part of the sea or whatever. You can make up so many lies and stories, and it's a pirate's law. Going back to, Skull and Bones 322 that you see out of Yale University, that secret society, going back originally to the ancient Phoenicians, the original pirates, and their navy. They were the original pirates, and they were the ones that have this navy that conquered so many, and were stealing and pirating and raping and robbing and burning villages and doing everything so long ago, because they were the ones that had the cedar wood out of Lebanon. So that's why, like in ancient Egypt, at that time, they didn't have that kind of wood, so they only could build these like barges that would just go on the Nile River, but couldn't really be seaworthy. But the Phoenicians had that incredible navy, all that cedar wood to build these big ships, and they were the original pirates. So that's where the Admiralty law, the satanic Admiralty law, is coming in. And look up Jordan Maxwell to find out, if you don't know, like when attorneys in America, when they take the BAR exam, that's the fealty to the Temple Bar in City of London. The first thing that they say is they pledge their allegiance to the Queen. It's the regent on the throne in Britain. Nothing to do with supposedly America. Anyway, you can look into that for yourself. But I've probably got to do something about that because it's far too interesting and illuminating. So anyway, back to this reading. And your truth will never make it to the court. Now they're evaluating little children to see what they should do with the little children. And then most of them don't get to go back to their family. All of these lawyers feed into, all of these layers feed into exactly what you were saying. Points 18 and 34 and 35, chapters 18 and 19. That's exactly what has been going on. And so all of this together, and then Jaco says, your history is right. It says Annapolis was not the first capital of the United States. Says while it did serve as a capital for a brief period when the Continental Congress met there November 8th, because I remember seeing a plaque there when I was stationed there in Annapolis as a SEAL motivator, and listener, he means as a Navy SEAL motivator, at the academy. So from November 8th, 1783 to August 1784, it says the first capital of the newly formed nation was actually New York City. And then it moved to Philadelphia. And then, like you said, the time frame with Washington, D.C. Very good. Sheila. And then I forget what year they burned it because the White House was burned. I think it was wood before, and that was burned. Jaco. Probably in the War of 1812 of Britain. Yeah, something like that. Sheila, yeah. That's where the Creek gained their name. Don't God willing and the Creek don't rise. That was an uprising to get their land back. And so they fought to help America save the land from England. We've never been free from England. But anyway, they tried. And so what's really crazy is they fought until like 1815 or 1816. And by 1820, they were pushing them into the Trail of Tears. Sheila's referencing the Native Americans, the Creek tribe. They were pushing them into the Trail of Tears, even though they won their court case. And yes, listener, you can see in Sheila's book that we're referencing here, she talks about what happened, how the Creeks, the Native American Creek tribe and other Native American tribes won in court at that time. They won and they should have gotten their lands back. They should have gotten so many things back, but instead the evils just trounced all over them and sent them out into a pitiful, sent them away from all their lands to these like pitiful little reservations and stuff like that. And I don't think it's a boon and a blessing that they got all the casinos. And even though you could say they make millions and millions and millions of dollars from these casinos on the Indian reservations, that all those casinos and everything are so satanic. And the Native Americans are the gatekeepers of the earth realm. They have that like sacred duty. And so to take them and all their silent inner knowledge of the real history of the earth and all of their natural power and everything that they were given by Mother, Father, God, to take that and then just to try to pacify them by letting them get rich through these corrupted satanic casinos that are making other people lose all of their homes, all of their life savings, just addicted, and just their life is in the gutter because they can't stop gambling. That doesn't work. Anyway, back to the reading. So Jaco says, you made an interesting comment that we've never been free from England. Do you think that we're moving that direction now with Trump moving in and starting to seize the city? Sheila. Well, what's really interesting is they have a sign and the crown that was currently there with Charles and et cetera, et cetera. They have a date above it now, and Jan Helper Hayes provided the date. I've never seen this piece, but it's right up above. I don't know if it's at their castle, the Buckingham Palace, or where it's at, but it says 1867 of just his family to 2017. Now I'm going to interrupt again, listener, to say what Sheila is saying here, and she's not saying it really specifically, but I've seen the image of, it's supposedly King Charles sitting in the coronation chair. You know, the in Westminster, it's Westminster Abbey where you used to always see Prince Charles sitting next to Queen Elizabeth II, decked out in all their sashes and medals and jewels and crowns and ermine furs and holding their scepters and all of that stuff. And then you saw before supposedly they lost power, but not that many people were wondering why the Queen's coach was stripped of all its pomp and circumstance, and she just was coming up to the Westminster Abbey or doing those great celebrations in just like a town car, wearing street clothing, no more ermine robes, no more crowns, no more royal jewels, no more scepters, and just sitting there uncomfortably. And Charles the same, just wearing like a three-piece suit, not his like military regalia with millions of order of this and order of that and sash of the this and sash of the garter that and jewels here and jewels there, because they were stripped of all their power. And they were made to do that, to show the world. But not that many people picked up on it. Even people, I mean, they're used to that their whole life, and they didn't say, oh, why is the Queen just wearing like a little hat and a little suit? And same with Charles at these incredible gala celebrations where the British royalty usually is decked to the nines. Yeah. Anyway, so there's a date. There's this came out this year. It's an image of supposedly King Charles sitting in his throne chair, and above it, like kind of inscribed, like engraved, is like a little plaque. It's basically showing bye-bye satanic usurpers that called yourself Windsors and you're really Sex Kobugun Gotha. It's like that reign of terror and nightmarish satanic evilness is over. So that's what Sheila Holm is trying to reference here. And then Sheila says, remember she, and she's talking about Queen Elizabeth II, surrendered to him, and she's talking about President Trump. And then he viewed the guard, inspected the guard, and then he made Charles come along like a little puppy dog. Neither one of them knew how to walk. They didn't even know where to put their feet. They were completely dumbfounded that all of this was happening. You know what I mean? But it's just kind of interesting. But Jan Helper Hayes is being really big about it, being the Vatican, the Crown, and the United States that they've controlled. But to me, it's the three realms. It's the empires. And the first empire was Rome. And the second one was Berlin, which is why there was the wall. Remember when Reagan said, take down this wall? The wall was to protect the world order in Berlin. That's where the world order was. And then what happened? They moved it to America in 1871 when they put us under this corporation that's registered under England, just like the state of Israel is registered under England. And so the realm and the timing and how they've done this thing, you can when you look backwards into it. That's why God had me write this book backwards. You look backwards into it, you can see, oh, they had to do that so they could do this. Then Sheila thanks Michael for helping her to get this info out and saying how she was horribly attacked. She was trying to get this info out. And Sheila says, but they throw so much mud and confusion around absolutely everything because that's how they operate. Keep us distracted. All this stuff going on. Do you think these people are dead? Do you think these people have already been through tribunals? Doesn't matter. We've got to do boots on the ground. But we can do, because we have to turn around every village, town, city, county, state. We've got to clean up everything in order to go forward. Jaco, yeah, it seems pretty imposing, but I think it's going to happen in its own time. Now I think there's a possibility that we may see some states that will break away, and we'll have other states that will, like, break away from those states. If you look at Northern California, Oregon, and Washington, the eastern side of the states, Oregon and Washington, they all want to break away. There's a possibility that could happen. Northern California and those two states. And then the rest of those states will break away and they won't be a part of the union anymore. So there's lots of talk of how this is going to go forward. If they break away from the U.S., they will just wither and die. Because it's we the people that are making that happen. And they can't keep paying all these people all this money that they pay them for nothing if they don't have us to do it. So what do you think is going to happen with that? Sheila, well, look at all the money they've cut off. Remember when there was a trip by our friend and listener, normally when I hear this reference about someone going recently, and generally recently, over to Antarctica, I think of John Kerry's suspicious trip. I think of George Bush's suspicious trip, of the Clintons' suspicious trips, but I don't know who Sheila's exactly referencing here when she says, when there was a trip by our friend over to Antarctica, and then all of a sudden the next week, there was this big announcement that $980 trillion was removed from their clandestine banks. Oh my gosh, $980 trillion. Well, clandestine banks wouldn't be in any of our nations. Their clandestine banks were in their community under Antarctica, where they were building up to be, when they eliminate us, and then they wait until the air clears to come out back above. I mean, it's just unbelievable what has been cut off from them. And then you look at what Doge did. And then I don't know if we've talked about it, but the Ukrainian situation is really going to come to the forefront. I haven't said as much about this, but a little bit of it's in this book. It's up in the 360s. If you go to like page 362 area, you're going to find the map of Ukraine that confirms that the entire area that's got its own language is the ancient land of Khazaria. Khazaria Nation was ancient Khazaria. That's that particular area. There's just a little bit of green on that map. On that map there, those people speak a more Russian, but a little bit mixed of the Ukrainian language. And I'm not going to keep going and talking about that because I don't think Sheila Holm is really being specific enough about that. I've spoken about that several times, once again, in many podcasts on my YouTube channel about ancient Khazaria, the history of it regarding the seed of the serpent, children of Cain, that infiltrated there, what the Tsar of Russia did to them, how they got revenge on Russia by creating the satanic Bolsheviks to wipe out the Romanovs, and all the stuff linking to Stalin. And it's just a huge topic, but that's where you get the term Khazaria Mafia. It is these children of Cain, seed of the serpent, that cloaked themselves as being, they tried to pretend they were actually real Hebrews, but they're really fake JEWSs. They're not the real Hebrews. Yes, there is a big distinction between real Hebrews, the goodly and the godly people, just like people that are practicing their faith, in good conscience, and whether it's just their family tradition or whatever. And then there's infiltration. Like we see that they are goodly and godly Muslims that are practicing their faith, but there's a big distinction between that and the Muslim Brotherhood, that terrorist organization that you see in the mass satanic Islamic caliphate that's taken over Europe and trying to take over, like in Texas, they wanted this whole town to themselves. Or go to Dearborn, Michigan, where all the Muslim Somalis, it's like you're not even in America anymore. It's crazy. And that purpose is evil and dark. Just like the fake JEWSs, like the most famous ones I could say, the Rothschilds. And the Rockefellers used to be the Rothschilds. It's, like I've spoken about so many times, the evils change their surname and their identity, and they kind of morph themselves to remain hidden, and to trick people that you don't know who they really are, who their children really are, or their grandchildren really are, and what kind of nepotism is going on, and why is that, what kind of nepotism it is, directly related to a satanic bloodline. They, anyway, I don't want to divert into that because that's a very interesting topic. I don't know if I need to go into it again. Like I said, I've spoken so much about it before, about how the Khazaria Mafia are really fake JEWSs. They can put on the yarmulkes. They can go to temple on the Sabbath, on Saturday. They look like they're righteous, real Hebrews out in the public eye. But in their temples, underneath, in the basement, like we saw a couple years ago, when you saw the Hasidim, the Orthodox, what you thought were Orthodox JEWSs, crawling out of the gutter, out of the sewers, after a lot of the temples and different homes and buildings were raided in Brooklyn, New York, the very Orthodox Hasidic part of Brooklyn, where they found all these blood-stained and semen-stained mattresses, where they had been raping the babies and children. Also, they've been butchering and eating the babies and children for a very long time. That's a whole nother disgusting topic. But that's why you saw them there. And it's a big topic, but people can't go general on that. There's a distinction and the difference. Just like in Christianity, how many chapels and churches or whatever say that they're preaching the gospel of Christ, of what Jesus the Christ taught, but what they're saying out of their mouths and teaching is really hellish. It's not a religion, a divine faith based on what Jesus taught and was and wanted us to learn. It's infiltrated in so many cases, just like infiltrated of the Hebrew faith, infiltration of the Buddhist faith, infiltration of the Muslim faith, infiltration. I mean, I don't know if the Mormons ever had a faith that wasn't rotten, but that doesn't mean that all people that practice the Mormon faith are. Like I said, many people just have that tradition and they're following it blindly. They're not powerful and they're not reaping benefits like their elders are through all their satanic rituals and nonsense that they do. But all that's getting cleaned up, okay? It really definitely is. Piece by piece, step by step. So I want to end this here. If you just stumbled across this and you didn't listen to, this is Red October Part 2A. This op is much bigger than you think. I suggest you just go right back earlier today and listen to the podcast called Red October Part 2. This op is much bigger than you really think, because you missed out on a lot if you didn't hear that. Thank you for listening. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much. I end all of my clips with a closing prayer in Sanskrit and Telugu, and what I'm saying is God bless all beings in all worlds. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Yes, peace, peace, peace. God bless you and yours. I'm sending much love and big hugs to you and yours. I'll see you when I see you, and bye-bye for now.